Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It's so good to be back. It's so good to see everybody. How are you doing today? Hope you're doing awesome. Hope you're doing excellent. I'm excited for the stream as I am every week. We got actually a lot of good topics to talk about today. Quite a few, quite a varied amount of stuff we can discuss. Everything from sales numbers to big industry news, good news, bad news, whole bunch of different stuff going on. I just realized, holy cow, I just realized that before the stream, I didn't pull the NPD stuff or Circana. Whoops. Because I usually go over that whenever there is a new report out. So let me pull that up. Sorry. That was going to be obviously one of the things that we were going to talk about. So let me pull that up. My bad. Sorry for the rough start on the stream. Come on, you stupid thing. Okay. Audio good and everything like that? Think so. My preview thing is still showing the starting soon. Hopefully you guys can hear me or see me. I don't know. My preview thing is like janky. So we'll see. I don't know. Okay. All right. Anyways. Sorry, this is a rough start to the stream. So anyways, what are some of the big topics we can talk about today? What's some of the big stuff that we can discuss? Well, first of all, probably the most latest breaking news, something that's going to be exciting for a lot of people, is that Larian confirmed today that Baldur's Gate 3 will launch this year on Xbox. Now, we knew that Larian was working on an Xbox version. We knew that, they wanted to get this game out. They had said before that Series S was giving them problems with split screen, and due to, the parity clause, that they weren't going to get this game out in time, and it was going to be delayed. And at one point it was sounding like this game wasn't going to come to Xbox until next year. But Larian have stated that they had a meeting with Phil Spencer yesterday. They came to an agreement, and it will actually launch on Xbox this year. Now, the big way this was able to be done is that Series X will maintain split screen, but Series S will not have a split screen option. So it seems that Microsoft has allowed that parity clause on this specific game to lapse. Now, a lot of debates going on if this is a good thing that Microsoft's going to allow, Series X and S to not have the exact same features. Is this going to cause, a bunch of other developers to start pushing to not support Series S as strongly? We can talk about all of that if you guys want to. There's a lot to talk about there. Another big story that came out yesterday was about BioWare. BioWare has laid off 50 people. They're talking about how they're restructuring the studio. They've got a long-term vision for the health of the studio. And it sounds like some pretty important people were let go. For example, one of the writers that's been on Dragon Age since the very, very beginning of Dragon Age was let go. So some noteworthy departures there. And one of the, I think, actually most surprising things that came out of this is that Mass Effect is still in pre-production. They announced that game 3 years ago. So the next Mass Effect, who knows when that's coming out? That was announced literally 3 years ago. It was announced in 2020, and it hasn't even left pre-production yet. That is pretty surprising in my opinion. I thought this game was still, several years off, considering, the next Dragon Age wasn't even out yet. But to find out it's not even out of pre-production, oof. That is quite the surprise. Armored Core 6 is getting crazy reviews. We can talk about sales expectations for that if you want to. We got some new details on some of the upcoming PlayStation accessory products. So the Q Lite that had been rumored, it's called actually the official name PlayStation Portable, or PlayStation Portal, sorry. It's handheld, it's remote play only. It has an 8-inch 1080p screen. It's got all the DualSense features. It's going to be $199 and it launches later this year. They announced the Pulse Elite headset. Sounds like this is a better version of the Pulse headset that's already out. They said it's going to have some audio improvements. It's going to have AI enhanced noise rejection. That thing's going to be $149.99. And then they announced the Pulse Explore wireless earbuds. They're basically PlayStation earbuds instead of the big, over-the-ear things that we're accustomed to for gaming headsets. These are going to be actual earbuds, and those are $199. Another big story that's out is in regards to Microsoft selling off the cloud rights for Activision Blizzard games to Ubisoft to try to appease the CMA in the UK. There's a whole bunch of discussion around this, if it's a good idea, if it's a bad idea. I had some real hot takes on the night, but after some more thinking about it, we'll see. We'll see how this plays out and if it's a good move or a bad move. I don't think it's a great move for consumers, if I'm being honest, which is a little bit funny because the whole argument from the CMA is how they're trying to make things easier and you know, pro-consumer. But to me, this actually seems more anti-consumer than it would have been before. But we'll see. We'll see. And I think that's really all of the main highlights. We can talk about some stuff out of Gamescom if you guys want. Alan Wake 2 looks absolutely unbelievable. You know, there's a 14-minute gameplay video that went up that I shared, and wow, the visuals on this game are just absolutely insane. One of the best looking games I've ever seen in my life. There's a couple scenes in there that are so realistic they border on live action looking, and it's actually confusing people because there are parts of this game that are in live action, and I'm having some people respond to my tweet about the visuals, and one of the screenshots I used is from one of the scenes where it's actually Alan with an in-game character model and not the live action one, and it's so good looking. I had several people commenting, oh, that's the live action scene, and it is not. If you watch it very closely, that is an in-game rendered character model, and in fact the director of the game actually replied to someone that was commenting on my tweet and said that's not live action. It's absolutely crazy how good that game looks. Stunning looking game. So we can talk about anything out of Gamescom if you guys want to. The last thing I'll go over really quick is I'll go over the July results for Circana, which is basically NPD. They just changed the name. It's not the most interesting chart ever because we're in July, so I'll make this super brief. This was for July, I should say. One of the slowest months of the year. Not exactly, you know, super hype-inducing charts, but PlayStation 5, number 1. Number 2 is Switch. Number 3 is Xbox Series. And in terms of software results, Remnant 2 tops the chart. That's actually awesome to see. That game appears to be doing very well. So Remnant 2 goes to number 1. Number 2 is Diablo 4. Number 3 is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Number 4 is Hogwarts Legacy. Number 5 is Final Fantasy 16. Number 6, Pikmin 4. Number 7, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Number 8, Street Fighter 6. Number 9, Elden Ring. Number 10, MLB The Show 23. Number 11, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. 12 is Mario Kart 8. 13 is Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Wow, that's a pretty crazy one, right? Call of Duty Black Ops 2. You heard that right. 2. That old game bouncing up the charts because of like them fixing the servers and stuff. Crazy. Minecraft number 14. Number 15, FIFA 23. Number 16, Exoprimal. Obviously not a good launch, right? That game just came out and it debuts all the way down at number 16. Not good. Now, this game actually got really strong engagement through Game Pass. Watching the charts, it ranked pretty high on Game Pass. But in terms of actual sales, did not sell well, which we kind of all knew, right? If you looked at like the Steam numbers, if you looked at the like really any buzz anywhere about the game, it was pretty clear that it wasn't selling a lot. Did have good engagement through Game Pass, but in terms of sales, I would say definitely an underperformer in terms of sales specifically. Number 17, Spider-Man Miles Morales. Number 18, Spider-Man. Number 19, Dead Island 2. And number 20, Black Ops 3. Okay, guys, so that's it. That's it for the big news topics off of the top. We can now go into your guys' comments and questions and anything you guys want to. So for anyone, if this is the first time as part of my live chat, the way it works, it's a stream, it's a show, it's 100% driven by you. Your comments, your questions, you just drop them down into chat, and we talk about the latest and biggest news in the video game industry. There's going to be a few ways to do that. So first of all, there is the super chat method. You just type a donation, whatever you want. It alerts me, and I get to super chats immediately. As always, though, don't feel pressured or obligated to donate in the chat. It's just an option. Another option is to become a channel member. Channel memberships are $4.99 for a month, and the thing that I guarantee to every channel member is that every single stream, you will get at minimum one comment or question or whatever highlighted in the stream. Oftentimes, channel members get even more than one, but at the bare minimum, I guarantee anyone that's a channel member, you're going to get your stuff highlighted here on the stream. And then, of course, finally, there's the free method. You just type a question, whatever you want, or comment. It pops into chat, and I get to as many free questions as I possibly can per stream. The main difference is just usually these chats are big enough I cannot hit every free comment and question because they fill up pretty big. So, but I will guarantee that I get to a bunch. I get to a bunch every single stream. All right, guys, let's get kicking, baby. Let's get rocking and rolling. Oh, and one more thing before we get into the good stuff here. I want to say a big thank you to everyone that wished me a happy birthday yesterday. Yesterday was my birthday, and you know, this has been a tough year for me in regards to the mental health side of things. My actual life is fine. There's nothing going on in my life that's bad. But, you know, the mental health has been rough, and I had so many. It was crazy, the outpouring of people telling me happy birthday yesterday, sending me the good, positive vibes. You guys are all amazing, so thank you so much for that. It made my day. And, you know, I think I'm about to head into a good patch again. You know, I had a good patch going on, and then I got really sick, like, I guess it was about 2 weeks ago now, and then that kind of, like, re-triggered, you know, whenever you feel just horrible, it can kind of, like, drag you down. That kind of re-triggered another wave of, like, bad stuff, but I feel like I'm pulling back out of it again, so hopefully we're about to hit a very good pace. All right, guys, let's get rocking and rolling. No super chats to kick us off, but we do have a channel renewal from the man himself. Split End 89 has been a channel member for 4 months. Split End 89 is the absolute man, helps me mod the channel, does amazing work over on Gaming Trend, so always check out his work at Gaming Trend. He's always doing all kinds of reviews and previews and all kinds of good stuff, and also a great friend. So Split End 89 kicking us off here saying, give us your top 5 games of the year. I get that it will be a so far list. Also seems confirmed it's the S holding stuff back from today's news. Yes, so my top 5 for the year, I would go, number 1 for me is still going to be Tears of the Kingdom as of now. Now, I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3 yet, so that's kind of the big one where people are like, you know, coming down to, is it Baldur's Gate or is it Zelda? I haven't played Baldur's Gate. I don't really have a great gaming PC, so I'm going to wait for that to be on PlayStation 5. But out of what I've played, I would still put Tears of the Kingdom number 1. Number 2... maybe Final Fantasy 16, maybe. After I get past number 1, it's a little tough because there's several games I really loved. So, number 1, Tears of the Kingdom. Number 2, probably Final Fantasy 16. Number 3, Jedi Survivor. Number 4, Hi-Fi Rush. And number 5, let me see, what all have I played? What have I played? That are new games, of course. So we got Zelda, we got Final Fantasy 16, we got Jedi Survivor, we got Hi-Fi Rush, and number 5, probably Street Fighter 6. That would probably be my top 5 as of now. Now, that's obviously probably about to drastically change because we're about to get into like a crazy season of game releases where there's just tons of massive things. So I will not be surprised at all if a game or two gets kicked down on that list. But right now, that would be my top 5 personally. That would be my personal top 5. And yeah, it does seem confirmed it's the S holding some stuff back. So I think this was a great compromise. I think they should continue to allow some compromises. Now, the thing I said, if you guys watched my chat last week, we actually were talking about this topic specifically last week. So the timing is pretty funny how we had a big discussion around the Series S parity. And then literally 1 week later, you know, I was saying on that stream last week, I was saying Xbox is making a big mistake here on forcing like extreme parity, assuming that's what was going on. It sounds like that is Larian's perspective. I heard some comments from Phil Spencer in an interview with IGN yesterday where it almost felt like he was implying it was not Microsoft. And I don't want to put words in his mouth at all. It's just the IGN interview almost came across. He kept talking about like developers' creative desires, and he was almost making it sound like and again, I don't want to put words in his mouth. This is just sort of what it sounded like that it wasn't Microsoft forcing the parody, but I don't know. I don't want to get into all of that. But either way, however this all worked out, however this decision was made, where they're like, listen, we're just going to skip split screen on the S, it was the right call at the end of the day. This is one of the highest reviewed games of the year. It's a game of the year contender. You really don't want to have this game missing your platform for the year simply over something like split screen. That to me is crazy. That to me is crazy. And I think they made the right decision here. Now, the thing I keep saying is I don't want to see a situation where Microsoft just straight up like allows a studio to make a game and skip the S entirely. They cannot allow that, because that's another talking point that you see float out sometimes. Well, just let a studio make a game just for the X. You know, who cares about the S? Dude, they've sold way too many S's. The promise of the S was that it would be a flagship console for this generation. They cannot do that. That would be, honestly, very anti-consumer. So I know it might sound appealing to someone on the outside to be like, just focus on the power of the X. The S is weaker. It's holding stuff back. Cut it out. No, that's anti-consumer, man. They sold a console. They sold it on the promise of you're going to get all the games this generation. They need to still have games ship on S. But I think they should be much more lenient around this parity stuff. And what I said last chat, and this is going to be a case-by-case basis, right? They're going to have to work with each studio on the games. But as long as the core game is the same, because to me, Baldur's Gate 3, whether it has split screen or not, that's a feature. To me, that's not the core game. There's going to be some people that really, really want to play split screen on the S, and they'll be bummed out about it. But they're still going to get the essentially exact same game. It's going to have the same storyline, the same zones and worlds to explore, the same characters. Like, the core game is the exact same. It's just a feature that's missing. To me, that should be true for basically across the board. You do not want a situation where, someone's going to skip your platform, even if it's a delay, not permanently, because Larian kept saying they wanted to ship on Xbox. But if you're going to have games, missing by 6, 7, 8, 9 months simply from the PlayStation version, simply because they can't get the exact parity between the consoles, that's not something you want. So this was good. This was the right decision. This was the right call. And good on Phil and Larian and everyone to make this decision. It was the right move. Captain Logan here with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Captain Logan. If Baldur's Gate 3 was a 72 instead of the 96 it's currently rated, do you think Phil would have bent the knee on console parity? Probably not, to be honest with you. And again, this is assuming that is truly what happened. That it was truly Phil just being like, and again, I don't know all the details, right? I'm not the one behind the scenes. All I can do is listen to what Larian said, right? Larian specifically stated that the reason that the game was being delayed previously, I'm not saying right now, but previously, they literally specifically stated it was because of the Series S and split screen. So this is me assuming that truly what happened behind the scenes in this meeting is Larian were like, dude, just let us skip the split screen on the S and we can get this game out for you this year. And Phil saying, okay, let's do it. So assuming that's really what happened here, would that have happened if Baldur's Gate 3 was like a 72 and wasn't this massive sales success? No, I don't think so, right? But I think it takes a game like this to, it's like a learning lesson, right? Just like I feel like Redfall was a learning lesson for Microsoft, right? No one's perfect. Sometimes you have a strategy or a plan in place that feels right, and then something happens and you're like, wow, okay, we got to pivot and we got to learn from this. To me, this was probably going to happen eventually, no matter what. Whether that game was going to be Baldur's Gate 3 or whether that was going to be some other massive game this generation that blew up and sold a ton. Like, something at some point was going to hit this situation where Microsoft was going to have to, I think, bend a bit on that parity. And again, like I've been saying, to me, bending on parity doesn't mean, oh, you can just skip the S version now. Like, you cannot do that. But things like this, like split screen, absolutely being maintained between both. It was eventually going to happen. Some game was going to push them on this, and it turns out it ended up being Baldur's Gate 3. So I think they'll take it as a learning lesson. I think they won't be quite as hardcore moving forward, but again, I don't want them to be so lax that the Series S is just like missing tons of content. Like, when I say they can skip features, It's something like split screen. Like, it'd be a big mistake if Microsoft were like so lenient that they were like actually cutting content out of the game, where they were like, yeah, we're shipping the game on both, but like, let's say something crazy like a game that has single player and multiplayer, and they were like, hey, we're gonna ship the game, and I'm saying, not saying like split screen co-op, I'm saying like literally different versions. Like, let's say a Call of Duty. This would never happen with Call of Duty, but you know, Call of Duty has a campaign and Call of Duty has full on competitive multiplayer. Like, you can't bend so much that it's like, oh, you can put like the multiplayer component on the S, but you know what? Just skip the campaign. Only the X gets the campaign. Like they did with the last gen versions, last generation of Call of Duty. I think it was like Black Ops 3 or 4. One of them, if you bought the like 360 and PS3 version, it had no campaign. Only the next gen consoles at the time got the campaign and the multiplayer. The 360 and PS3 only got the multiplayer. Something like that, no. But something like split screen, yeah, whatever, man. Let it slide. It's not that big a deal. Maker of Chaos 12 with a 10 super chat. Happy and thank you. That's a very generous super chat. Happy belated birthday. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm curious on your take on the PS Portal. I'm more skeptical that it will do well, especially with it lacking Bluetooth and that it's only remote play. Keep up the great work. Yeah, I will be honest. This all comes down to what Sony expect, right? That is really the giant thing that matters in this situation on whether PlayStation Portal is a massive success for them or even successful at all or a giant bomb. The question is, what is Sony expecting this thing to sell? Right? Are they expecting this thing to sell 10, 15, 20 million units? If they're expecting like that, my personal take is that it's not going to come anywhere near that. If their expectation is to sell 1 million of them, you know, not at launch, but total, yeah, I think they'll probably be able to sell 1 million, you know, who knows? Maybe they'll even be able to sell like 2 or 3 million. We'll just have to see how this thing actually, you know, is. But to me, PS Portal all comes down to expectations, because I think there's going to be some hardcore PlayStation fans that do buy this thing, right? I don't think it's going to come out and sell 0 units. There are going to be, you know, there's some hardcore PlayStation fans, man, that are very similar to Apple fans, where they buy, you know, anything PlayStation related. That's not a massive number of people, but there are some people like that. They're, you know, they want the Pulse headsets and they want the DualSense edges and they want the console and they want the custom faceplates and they buy limited edition controllers. Like, there is a group of people like that that are going to probably want this thing. And there are some people in specific situations where there's only one TV in the household, let's say. Not everyone has a bunch of money and multiple TVs in multiple rooms that this may be useful for. So to me, PS Portal all comes down to what they expect. I do not expect PS Portal to sell many units. Like I said, single digit million is what I would say. Best case. Best case scenario is it's single digit millions. I can't see this getting to double digits. Can't see this selling 10 million plus. I could be wrong. I always say that. But it doesn't look like a product to me, strictly being remote play, that's going to be able to hit double digit millions. I would be very surprised. Very surprised. Now, if it could natively play games, we're talking a completely different scenario. If you could natively install, you know, PlayStation 4 games or PS5, obviously a portable PS5 is like a huge long shot here. But if it had like native PS4 portable, like the whole PS4 library you could install on it, and even like the PS Classics, you know, that could be an interesting product in terms of like how much could it sell. But with it being strictly a remote play device, I can't expect a lot out of it. So hopefully Sony doesn't have big expectations. Anthony M. Johnson has become Mercenary Knight Publishing has become a channel member. Thank you so much, Anthony Johnson. Very, very appreciate that channel membership, man. And then Anthony Johnson has a channel member comment or question right beneath it saying, I think the Activision deal is still worth it to Microsoft, but with Ubisoft getting streaming rights on all ActiBliz deal, I don't see much benefits to Xbox as a brand. What are your thoughts on this pivot? I don't love the Ubisoft deal. I don't love it at all. And I personally think Microsoft has had to give up too much to get this to pass. And whenever I say give up too much, that doesn't mean to the point where I'm like, there's no point in buying them. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying, like, I think that regulators actually pushed a little too hard here. I think that making them sell the streaming rights is pretty ridiculous, if I'm being honest with you. So I don't love that. I just don't love that. I think it was a step too far. If I'm being completely honest with you, I think that was a step too far, forcing them to sell the streaming rights. So don't love it. I see why Microsoft did it. Listen, they're in too deep at this point. Maybe you could run a question back if you could rewind time and you could go all the way back and be like, before they ever even made the purchase, if you knew everything that's happened in the last, year and a half or 2 years, however long it's been, if you could somehow beam all of that information straight back to Satya Nadella and Phil Spencer and show them the future of what they'd have to go through to get this deal and what they'd have to give up, maybe they would make a different decision then. I'm not saying they would, but maybe. Maybe they would look at all of that and be like, maybe it's not worth this giant legal battle that we're going to spend lots and lots of money on and give up things like the streaming rights. Or maybe they would still just be like, you know what? It's worth it to us. So it's a hard one to answer, but I will say, don't love that they had to sell the streaming rights to Ubisoft. Don't love that at all. Don't love that at all. I think that was a step too far by the CMA. But that Microsoft's in so deep now. They've been doing this for a long time. They've spent a lot of money on lawyers. They've spent a lot of stuff on all this legal stuff. They already now are deep enough. If they back out, they have to give a ton of money to Activision. So they're just doing what they can to get this deal done now. So we'll see if it ends up being an amazing thing for them, mediocre thing, not a great thing. We'll see. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Split End gifted a membership, and that went to Cosimo. Congrats, Cosimo, and awesome of Split End 89 supporting the community like that. Cosimo, you can drop a comment, a question, whatever you want to chat. You're a channel member now, man. So drop it in there, and you will get highlighted. Shout out to Split End 89. Benji with a 10 super chat. Thank you so much, Benji. Hi, Benji. In my opinion, Sony is shooting itself in the foot by forcing some of its hardware with mandatory PS5 connection. I feel that the PSVR 2 and Portal would have wider appeal as standalone. Thoughts? Okay, so I guess you're meaning like if you could use PSVR 2 on PC, for example, or Portal, not just being maybe a remote play product, but maybe like streaming and other services, right? I definitely feel with PSVR 2, not allowing that to work on PC is a bad move. Yeah, I do think so actually in that case, especially because we're in a scenario now where Sony is making friendly with PC, right? They've actually launched quite a few games on PC now. So it's not a scenario where it used to be where there was just like, PlayStation was not involved with PC at all. Now I know they haven't released VR games on PC, but I mean, they've released God of War, they've released Uncharted, they've released The Last of Us. I mean, some of their most important games ever, they're now putting on PC. So they're already making friendly with PC. They're not the same way Microsoft is, where all their games are just day one, but it is a platform now that Sony is engaging with. I think that making PSVR 2 also compatible with PC would have definitely made the device more successful. Now, would it be a situation where they're going to sell 10 million PSVR 2s now because they work on PC? Not so much, but they would definitely sell more in my opinion. There's no doubt they would sell more PSVR 2s if it was PC compatible as well. But so I think that was actually a mistake. I do agree on that one. With Portal, it's hard to say because I think in order for Portal to be a big success, it would have to be a different product. I think as long as it's some sort of remote play / streaming sort of thing, I think there is, no matter what, just a ceiling on the appeal of that. For PlayStation Portal to be like an actually truly successful product, it would have to be like a Steam Deck, or it'd have to be like a ROG Ally. Like, it would have to actually natively play games, in my opinion, to be a big success. So PlayStation Portal, I feel differently on than PSVR 2, simply because I feel that PlayStation Portal would have to be a completely different product in the market. But PSVR 2, yeah, that would, I think it was a mistake to not allow that to be PC compatible. It's not like someone, here's the thing. I'm not going to say no one, because anytime you speak in absolutes, there's always going to be an exception. But what do you think is the actual number of people that went out and bought a PlayStation 5 console and a PSVR 2, which, by the way, those two combined would be like $1,000, strictly for the reason of playing PSVR 2, right? Which would be the argument of not supporting PC. You'd be like, well, we want someone to go out and buy a PlayStation, so that way they buy the PSVR 2. That number is like so small. The amount of people that specifically bought a PS5 only so they could play PSVR 2, we're talking that is such a small number of people that it doesn't make sense in my opinion. They should have allowed this to work on PC for sure, yeah. And thank you for that super chat, Benji. Always dropping the super chats. Omni Game Players dropping their first ever super chat. Thank you so much, Omni. I very much appreciate that. That's the first one you've ever done for the channel. Thank you so much, man. Dropping a 5. Benji, congrats on all the success and great work. You're cultivating an audience and people look forward to your input. That's a big accomplishment. Well, Omni, that is incredibly kind comment for you to say. You know, I will say that, like, I am so thankful for the audience that I have because they're so engaged with my content. Like, it really blows me away. Like, you know, my YouTube is much, much smaller than my Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. But, like, I have like way less followers than some people on Twitter, and yet if you look at the engagement on my tweets, they're like oftentimes, you know, bigger than people with way larger followings than me. And I think it's because a lot of people feel, and I feel this way as well, I have a good connection with my community. I feel like, you know, there's so many names I recognize all the time, whether it's here on YouTube or Twitter. We're very interactive, right? Like we do these live chats, we straight up talk to each other. It's not just like, you know, highlighting 4 questions. I mean, it's like, you know, 2-hour streams. You know, we'd sit here and talk about this stuff. So I'm very, very grateful for that. Of course, you're going to always get some trolls. You're always going to get some mean people. But, like, the percentage of people that are great in my audience compared to the people that are jerks are, you know, I think it definitely leans way more cool people. So I very much appreciate that, Omni. You know, to me, it's not really so much me cultivating the audience, though I do appreciate that. I just think I try and share interesting stuff, things that people are going to be interested in, and it's all working out. So I appreciate that. That's very kind of you, Omni. Very much appreciate that. All right. All right, baby. We got through all of the super chats. We got through the channel renewals. So now let me highlight channel members. And after channel members, we'll start diving into the free stuff. So channel members in chat. MD kicking us off with the first one in chat. That's just a channel member saying, Benji, you are a world-class analyst. Well, I appreciate that. You guys know I don't like to try to use the term analyst for myself much. There was a short period of time where even my Twitter handle said independent analyst. And I took that down for, it's been years now, where now it just says I cover the video game industry with sales, business, that sort of thing. I don't use the word analyst anymore. And every once in a while I'll get a troll being mean that's like, you're no analyst or whatever. And I'm like, I kind of agree. Like, I don't really use that word anymore. And the only reason I actually did use it for a short time is at that time, I had multiple offers to be a paid analyst. And whenever I say multiple, I'm talking at a publisher I had one, at a third-party analyst place I had one, and I also had people reaching out to me for just like individual meetings, like paid, like, hey, dude, look at this for us and we'll pay you. And so I thought that was the road I was going to go down. I was like, okay, I'm going to put independent analyst because at some point here very soon I'm going to get a job in the industry doing this. And this is going to sound weird because you guys know how much I like talking about sales and stuff. But I sort of pulled back from that. I was sort of like, I don't actually know that I want to be an analyst. Like, I had a really great interview with, I won't say the company, but I had an interview with a company that's what they do. They analyze the video game industry. And while I was doing this interview, it just like sort of dawned on me. I was like, if I truly became an analyst, right? Like, obviously I'd have to put way more work into what I do. But I can't do what I do on Twitter and YouTube the same. And like for any company, right? At that point, I'm dealing with all sorts of NDA data. They ain't going to allow me to just go out there and give you my opinions on all of this sort of stuff. And some people are going to think I'm dumb, but I passed them all up. I was like, you know what? I like having a community. Like, the whole reason I went out here and made this Twitter and YouTube, and the Twitter especially got way bigger than I ever expected, is I like talking to people about this stuff. And that would have to be drastically cut back if I go to be an analyst somewhere. And I was like, no, I'm just independent, man. I'm just covering the industry. I'm just doing my thing. Doesn't mean I won't ever take some sort of industry job. It has to be the right thing, though. It would have to be the right thing, because what I would have to give up to do that, I don't know. Like, my dream would be that I could somehow make enough money, like, independently, just covering the video game industry as just Benji, that I never have to work for anyone else. Like, that would be awesome. Don't get me wrong. There's been some huge opportunities fall into my lap before that maybe I made a mistake passing on, but I value the community too much. That's a lot to give up, man. You're asking me to give up a lot. So, I appreciate that, though, MD. All right. More channel member questions. What up, JCat in the chat? What is up, JCat? Great to see you, JCat. Thanks for always being awesome and help mod the channel. And JCat saying Persona 3 Reload is a mistake to price it at $70. Yeah, that seems aggressive, right? Xbox exclusive advertising is going to affect sales in Japan, where it will be perceived as Xbox exclusive. No Switch version is a mistake. I do think $70 on that is not a great call. Not a great call. It doesn't mean Persona 3 is not a great game, but with it being a remake of quite an older game, and it looks good, but to me, it doesn't look like, doesn't look like God of War Ragnarok or, something like that. I'm JCat. I do lean with you. I think this should have been a $60 instead of $70 game. I do think that was a little aggressive. Now, Persona 6, yeah, launch that thing at $70. But Persona 3 Remake, whenever I saw that, I was actually surprised. I just assumed that was going to be a $59.99 game. And whenever I saw that $70 on it, I was like, oh, okay, all right. Because we still see some games launch at 60, right? That's not to say that 70 hasn't become more of the norm, because definitely it has become more of it, but we still see $60 games. So that one did surprise me. I will be honest with you. No Switch version is a mistake. Yeah, it is. It is. I think the Xbox marketing thing is not as big of a deal because it still is on PlayStation. So to me, I think that's not as huge of a deal. Maybe it will be in Japan like you're mentioning, but I think worldwide that's not as much of a deal. But the two other things I definitely agree with JCat. $70 to me should have been $60, and no Switch version's absolutely a mistake. I mean, any Japanese game skipping Switch at this point is a mistake. It's just so dominant in Japan that, like, at least I should say once Switch 2 comes. Because there's some games, where the specs are just way past what a Switch is. I don't know if that's the case for Persona 3 Remake, but there's some games. But anyone skipping once Switch 2 comes along, because it is going to be more powerful than Switch 1, big mistake. Big mistake. For Japanese studios specifically. Carlos Moera here, channel member. Hey, Benji. Why do you think this type of industry conversation is so niche still? I'm surprised you don't get more views, because to me it's really excellent content. Keep up the good work. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, like I say all the time, my YouTube channel is just not anywhere near my my Twitter. I mean, at this point, my Twitter is getting close to like being 20 times the size of my YouTube, right? Because right now it's far more than 10 times, because I still haven't hit 5,000 subs on YouTube, but I'm about to hit 75,000 followers on Twitter. At this rate, it's very likely I'll hit 100,000 followers on Twitter next year, which to me is mind-blowing, but it looks like that's a lock. Something would have to really fall off for me to not hit 100K next year. And I'll be honest with you, next year, I don't know if I'll be at 6,000 subscribers on YouTube. Like, it's taken me, I mean, I've been stuck at 4,000 subs probably for, I don't know, because I don't pay as much attention to it, but dude, probably 8, 9, 10 months. Like, I just don't gain the YouTube subs. I think part of it is that I just don't make short form content. All right, they're these big long streams, and that's not going to be something that's approachable to a lot of people. If you look at what's successful on YouTube, not to say that long videos can't be successful, but if you look at what 99% of the most successful content on YouTube is, it's 10 to 15 minute videos, and they're pre-made and they're just quick form, which makes sense, right? A lot of people just want to jump in, boom, 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 get out. If you look, it's not really hour and a half, 2 hour long streams about some dude talking about video game sales. So none of it surprises me. On Twitter, my Twitter being so much more successful does make sense to me because it is short form content, right? Tweets can't be, until recently, they can't be these giant long books that you read. It's just quick, boom, boom, quick info. Someone can look at a tweet I send and read it in 10 or 15 seconds and understand exactly what the information is. Whereas this is these big, beefy, long streams where maybe even every question you're not interested in and you're skipping around. And so I'm not shocked by it. I am just thankful that there is enough interaction on my YouTube that we can do one of these streams every single week and we're never short on content. Ever. There is never a stream that I do every week where I'm like, there's just not enough questions for me to talk about. It's the opposite. I can never hit everything everyone's asking me. So that to me, listen, if my YouTube could have 100,000 subscribers like my Twitter's going to, sure, that would be amazing, right? At that point, I probably could make a living off of just doing this stuff. So it would be amazing, but I just don't see it ever happening for my channel unless I drastically change the type of content I do. I would have to do way more than just these streams. But I appreciate it, Carlos. Okay, got that, channel member 1. Highlander with a channel member question. Microsoft does not need to make a handheld as long as they support handhelds like ROG Ally. I agree with that. Yeah, they don't have to. Microsoft's under no obligation to make a handheld themselves. Like, I think it would be cool if Microsoft, because they're still making hardware, right? So I think it would be a cool situation if Microsoft created their own handheld just to see what sort of, form factor and like what the engineers at Xbox could come up with. Like, it'd be super cool, but they don't need to. You're absolutely correct. As long as you can buy things like ROG Allies and even Steam Decks, there's hacks, like ways to get Game Pass on Steam Deck. I haven't ever done it, but I know people do. As long as, and plus, streaming on phones and all the other stuff, like, yeah, their games are so accessible in different ways portably that they don't have to. It'd be cool. I'd love to see them do it just to see what they could come up with. But yeah, you're right, Highlander. They don't need to. J2 Blue in the Sky channel member saying, what's up, Benji? What's up, J2 Blue? Hope you're doing good, man. All right. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through looking for the channel member questions. Jose, I think the Sony Wii U pad is going to fail. Yeah, it is very much like a Wii U gamepad. Unless it's a hybrid test for a new portable PlayStation in the future. Yeah, again, my expectations are just not big. Not big at all. So hopefully Sony has, also very small expectations. And then J2 Blue in the Sky channel member question. What do you think that the best-selling console at the end of the year? Oh, for the year? Definitely not Xbox. So it's going to be between Switch and PS5. I'm going to still lean PS5. I think that I think Spider-Man's going to push a lot of hardware, man. And that doesn't mean that like Switch doesn't have a big console mover. It's got Mario Wonder. Mario Wonder's going to move some units for sure. But I could be wrong. I don't think it'll have the sort of impact like a Zelda did. A lot of us know Switch 2 is around the corner. Switch does do well during the holidays, but at J2 Blue in the Sky, it won't shock me if Switch somehow ends up selling the most, but I do still lean towards PlayStation 5. Spider-Man 2 is going to move a lot of hardware, man. If you look, it's like the first major PlayStation 5 only game that people have to upgrade to play. Like God of War Ragnarok, that was cross-gen. Now we know that they attracted people, to the PS5 through the God of War Ragnarok PS5 version. But it was at the end of the day still cross-gen. Horizon Forbidden West, cross-gen. There was Demon Souls, but that's not like a massive hardware mover. There was Ratchet, but again, that's not a massive hardware mover. Like Spider-Man 2 is that first one where it's like of the top tier biggest PlayStation exclusives, where it was like, if you want to play this, you have to have a PS5. it's going to sell a lot, man. That's going to move a lot of hardware. So I'll still lean towards Sony or PS5. But it's not a scenario where I'd be utterly shocked if Switch did, because Switch is still just a monster. Highlander with a 10 super chat here. Thank you so much, Highlander. I hope you enjoyed your trip around the sun. Well, the last 365, I would say no. You know, there were some very good moments and some very dark ones. So I would say the last overall, it was a tough one to get through. I am hoping things look up, but man, if they don't, ooh, your boy's in trouble. I hope the next year is better. I see Baldur's Gate selling, but I see a lot of buyer's remorse. Not the kind of game console players like, I disagree with this, Highlander. You know, we're all open to our own opinions, but I think this game's going to be huge on PlayStation. It's tracking huge on PlayStation. So, nah, I ain't worried about that at all, actually. But again, I could be wrong. Everyone's got their own opinion. It'll be interesting to see how it does on Xbox because it will be delayed still. It's going to be this year, but it will be after the PC version, after the PS5 version. You have to wonder if some of those people that do also own an Xbox would have already gotten it by then if they have a PC or PlayStation as well. So the Xbox version specifically, you know, who knows? But I'm just going to be frank. I have zero worry how it's selling on PlayStation. The tracking is great. And then, yeah, Anthony Johnson points out the discless PS5 model, which is rumored for $399. Yep. I lean PS5. I do lean PS5. Belmangi, Ryan on Podcast Unlocked said their coverage of Black Myth Wukong was getting close to 1 million views and said that was a big deal. What is your view of what that game will do when it is released? Well, that game has had a lot of buzz, really since its original reveal. So to me, that game could be a huge success. It's going to come down to quality. That game needs to be good because we haven't seen yet that big game out of China that's like, I mean, we've seen some successes, right? Isn't the Miho games, or however you say it, the MiHoYo games, aren't those out of China, right? Like Genshin and all that. But I mean this more like AAA traditional style. We haven't seen really that first one yet that really blows up in the West of that style. So it needs to be good. But I'm not surprised that it's tracking really good on Podcast Unlocked for their coverage. Black Myth Wukong has had big buzz since its initial reveal. There's a lot of interest in that game. So as long as it's good, yeah, I see it doing definitely good. Dead Planet with a 2 super chat. Is 1 million concurrent Steam users a lock for Starfield? I wouldn't go as far as a lock. I would say that I think it's in play. Now, I had someone ask me on Twitter if they thought that it would do 500,000 plus. And I said that's the floor. To me, there's no scenario this game does less than 500,000. There's no scenario. It's just, for me, the only way that would be possible is if Starfield came out of the gate with a 71 Metacritic. Okay, maybe something crazy that none of us expect to happens. But as long as this thing reviews well, not even 90s meta, as long as this is a solid 80s meta, I cannot see less than 500,000. The tracking on Steam is just way too big. And people love Bethesda games. And Fallout 4 hit huge numbers, and that was whenever Steam was much smaller than it is now. So I cannot see less than 500,000. I think that's the absolute floor. I actually think it goes way higher than that. But a milli is hard because, as we discussed on this the last stream, I think, there's one single-player game in history that's done that. Cyberpunk. And that is it. It's not like there's like, oh, we've got 10, 15, single-player only games that have managed to pull this off. We have one. There is literally, singularly one. Cyberpunk 2077 is the only single-player game to ever hit 1 million concurrent on Steam. So you're talking that literally Starfield would have to be the first or second biggest Steam launch for a single-player game in history. Once you start getting to those sort of like predictions, you're really rolling the dice, right? You're talking like some crazy stuff. So But could I see it happen? Like, is there a scenario where it's like I see that milli happen? Yeah, sure. There's a scenario I see that happen. The buzz for Starfield is out of control. If this thing does come in with a 90s Metacritic, which I don't know, I think 90s Metacritic's in play. I don't think it's a lock. I think it's in play. Let's just say they do. Let's just say Starfield comes out and it's 91, 92 Metacritic. I will not be shocked at all if it gets a milli. Like at that point, because Bethesda games are so big on PC, they have so much legs, and this is the first new IP out of Bethesda in forever. Again, I wouldn't call it a lock, but I would be like, okay, I could really see it happening. But we'll see. It's in play, but I wouldn't lock it. 500,000 plus is the absolute floor, and it's probably more likely going to be 7, 8, something like that. With the milli as a possibility. All right, let's hit some free questions. Thank you to all the channel members. Thank you to all the super chats. You guys are the best. Real Radic saying, no question today, but I hope you've been enjoying this amazing year for games. Real Radic, I've been absolutely loving it. It's been, as bad as my personal life is and as much of a mess as that is, boys gaming delivering. This is just an incredible year. And it doesn't stop. Armored Core 6 just came in with great reviews. It don't stop, man. What a year. Split End 89, just saying the kindest stuff as always. Benji's literally the best. Well, thank you so much, Split End. That means so much to me, buddy. Logan Hardy saying, belated happy birthday, Benji. Thank you so much. You are the real one. Also proud of ISRO for successfully landing on lunar South Pole. Yeah, isn't that, was it India? Right? Isn't that what it was? That India became only the 4th country ever to land on the moon, right? Isn't that what it was? I want to make sure that I'm remembering correct. Yep, yeah, that is amazing. That is amazing. Shout out. That's awesome. Anything that furthers space exploration, I'm so much in favor of. It's a bummer that this has become a bit of a political thing because Elon Musk. Because listen, the manifest destiny of humanity in the future is space, and it's not up for debate. There's no debate about it. Now, it doesn't mean that like the end-all destination of humanity is like we go to millions of other stars and populate the whole galaxy. Because if you pay attention to this sort of stuff, even just getting to the next closest star is very difficult. That doesn't mean that we could never leave potentially our solar system. Who knows? But like the reality is there's resources everywhere throughout the solar system. Like asteroid mining is going to happen. As long as we don't become extinct, there's zero question. We will be going out and asteroid mining at some point. Like, there's a lot of resources in space. Like, space is going to become a very massive part of humanity. It's not up for debate unless we kill ourselves, which is potential. There's always potential that we kill ourselves. But it bums me out that because Musk is so involved in space with SpaceX that it's become a political thing, because it shouldn't be. We should all be in favor of space exploration. All of us. Justin Tanhill, hello Benji. Hope you had a good birthday. The birthday itself was good. Yeah. When do you expect Nintendo will announce news for their next console? Well, Grubb said that he had heard, and he didn't say this was like something he knew for a fact. He just said he had heard rumblings that it would be sometime this year, actually. Like Grubb, and again, I don't know if he's changed his tune on that. I was just, I was in one of his live streams, and he was talking about it. And he had said, this was a few weeks back, so he may have changed his tune on this since then. I don't know. This is what I heard a few weeks back from Grubb. He said that the rumblings he had heard pretty much all year were that Nintendo was at late this year going to actually, like, in some capacity, announce their next console. So to me, there's definitely a chance. It depends on when this thing's launching. It depends on, what sort of messaging they want to get out there. If I had to predict for you, Justin, I do think they show it this year, sometime this fall. I mean, we're in fall window now, so I don't know. It's tough to say. We're getting close. We're getting close to where like they would have to, or else it would just make more sense to do it next year. So we'll see. But if you say, Benji, just make a prediction. September, October this year, they announce it. I don't know if they announced the launch lineup and every single detail about it, but I just do have a feeling that Nintendo is going to, in some way, confirm their next console this year. No insider information on this. This is just my opinion. I think we had a couple super chats come in. Let me hit those. And Cosimo gets the first channel member question. Cosimo, hi, Benji. As my first question, what's your thoughts on the gacha games industry compared to the live service game industry with Hoyoverse making $200 million a month? You know, it just depends. Like, there are some... Depends on how predatory it is. Like, I think part of the reason the Hoyoverse works so good, like if you play Genshin Impact, or I haven't played Honkai Star Rail, but I know people do like it. Like, but I played Genshin. Like, there's an actually, like, great game there beneath the gacha. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot you can do in that game without engaging with the gacha mechanics of it. So, and of course, there are things directly related to the gacha stuff, right? So it's not like I'm saying, oh, there's just zero, you know, rolling of the dice or whatever. Like, no, there is some of that gacha to it, but there's a great, big, expansive core game there beneath the gacha. So things like that, it doesn't bother me too much, if I'm being honest with you. I'm not that bothered by Genshin or what Honkai Star Rail do. Where it really becomes a problem to me is when the gacha is the game, essentially. Because then that's preying on people's, like, addictions. You know what I mean? Like, if there's not a ton of this deep game around that, and it's just a way to try to get you purely addicted to the gacha mechanics of the game and make you spend significant amount of money because that addiction thing is the core way that it brings you into the game experience itself, definitely not a fan of that. That I see is just purely predatory. So it really depends on the circumstance. Genshin, I'm pretty fine with it. And I think that's part of the reason why it actually is so successful is because so many people just like the game. They like the world. They like the characters. Like they love the game itself, and they're willing to spend some money on it. So to me, it all depends on what's around the gacha. What's around it. So... And I get some people that don't want to ever spend $1 on a gacha game. I find that completely understandable too. And Split End makes a great point. The only thing that might keep the Steam concurrent number down would be PC Game Pass. When I say down, I just mean under 1 million. Exactly. That's another thing people need to keep in mind, right? I've said a lot that I don't think that the Steam will be cannibalized as much as the console version of Starfield. I think the console version will see significant cannibalization, but the PC version less so, specifically because of how much people just love Steam. Like, if you're a console player, there's no other, like, storefront. Like, you're playing Starfield literally just directly through Xbox. So you're either just buying the game within the same storefront or you're playing it through Game Pass. Like, there's no other option. Like, that's what you're doing. Whereas, of course, on PC, there's other options, right? If you're going through Game Pass, you're not going through Steam, right? You're going through the Microsoft store and Microsoft side of things. And so many people just love Steam that I think it will be way less cannibalized than the console version because they're just going to buy it on Steam. But all of that being said, we also do know that Game Pass has millions of subscribers on PC. We know that. Phil has said that it has millions of subs on PC. So there are no question going to be a bunch of people that do engage with this through Game Pass on PC as well. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. What I keep saying is if this thing does a freaking million on Steam while also being available on Game Pass, the actual numbers are going to be freaking mind-blowing. So that's another thing to keep in mind. J2 Blue in the Sky with a 10 super chat. That is very generous and kind of you, J2. There's a rumor about PlayStation having another showcase sometime in September, end of August. Do you think that makes sense, or do you think it's a more substantial state of play? It's a great question, J2. I personally land on the side that it's going to just be a beefy state of play. A whole nother, like, true showcase, like in the way we think of showcase and the way that PlayStation gamers are thinking of showcase, because what I'm seeing in the PlayStation community is it's like, you know, we're going to see, you know, the next Naughty Dog game. And, you know, we're going to see, you know, Ghost of Tsushima 2. And we're going to see Sony Ben's new IP. Like, you know, this showcase is just going to be all these big single-player games that we want. That just seems not likely to me, especially with the recent announcement that multiple PlayStation first-party games are delayed internally. I keep saying to people have been asking me for like more than a year, literally in these chats for like more than a year. I've had PlayStation fans asking me, they're like, Benji, where are these games? Why is Sony not showing them? Is it like, because of the Activision deal and all this? And I've been telling people for like a year plus, dude, they're just not ready. The games just ain't ready to be shown. And I could absolutely see a beefy state of play with, one of these reveals, like one of these big single player first party games finally getting revealed in like a state of play. I actually could see that, along with, of course, third party stuff. But a full showcase, hey, I'd love to see it. If Sony come out here and announce this thing, I will be hyped as heck. But do I expect it? No, I don't think it's going to be a showcase. They're absolutely going to have some sort of state of play or something. They always do during the end of the year time frame. Like, there's always some sort of state of play in this window of some sort. So, yeah, there's going to be a big state of play coming. I'm leaning towards just a really awesome state of play and not a full-on showcase. But you never know. You never know. I will tell you, I have no inside information on that either way. Highlander001 with a 5 super chat. About the Microsoft/Ubisoft deal, would Microsoft put a clause in the contract in case someone buys Ubisoft? Oh, that is a good question. Yo, that's a great question. Do you see any problems with it? Great question, dude. I would have to think there's a clause in there. I would have to think. Because we just have to face the reality that Ubisoft being bought in the next, 5 to 10 years, because like this deal lasts a long time. I believe it's every game released in the next 15 years is covered in this deal. And Ubisoft then has it in perpetuity. So in other words, any game in the next 15 years, even after that 15 years, Ubisoft still has the streaming rights to it. But like the odds of Ubisoft being bought in the next 15 years, let's just be realistic. Yes, there's very good odds. That doesn't mean it's a lock, but we are seeing consolidation in the industry. The odds that someone buys Ubisoft in the next 15 years, that to me is more than 50-50, or at minimum 50-50. It's at least a coin flip. So I would think Microsoft would know that as well, and there's got to be some sort of clause. There's got to be. There just absolutely has to be, Highlander, is what I would say. I don't know that firsthand. Of course, probably, no one's read these contracts outside of Microsoft, their lawyers, and Ubisoft and their lawyers, but it's got to be. There's got to be something in there. And then Highlander had another super chat. That's very, very generous, dude. It's a lot of super chats, man. I was surprised that India landed their probe and Russia's made their second trash dump. Their second probe crashed like their first. That's wild that we will go to the moon twice in my lifetime. Yeah, it is. Here's the thing. Like, there's all sorts of conspiracy theories people have had about why we haven't been back to the moon. Was the moon landing fake? Is there aliens on the moon they found and got scared? There's always all sorts of that sort of stuff. The reason we haven't gone back to the moon is it's incredibly expensive for what you're going to get out of it in terms of like putting a person up there. I do think, NASA is laying the groundwork to getting people on the moon here real soon. So it does look like it's finally happening, but there's no real conspiracies about like, why haven't we sent, 30 more people to the moon, in the last few years? Well, it's very expensive, very risky. And until you have like a base and like a cheap way of getting people there, it just doesn't make sense to do it. You know what I mean? So there's a whole lot of very obvious reasons we haven't been back to the moon. It would be exciting, of course, to see more moon landings with people on them, but it all makes sense why we haven't done it until now. It looks like we're laying the groundwork now for that. And in terms of Russia's probe crashing, I mean, it's surprising, but there's a lot of stuff going on in Russia right now. We just gotta be honest. You gotta wonder how that country's gonna look in the next 10 years. You know what I mean? So, hard to say. Hard to say. But shout out to India. That's awesome. Anyone getting more space travel, totally awesome, man. And then another super chat. Holy cow, man. From Dead Planet with a 5. Play pretend with me for a sec. Okay. Could we see an interesting dynamic in 2024 where PS Pro has the power, but Xbox has the intriguing games lineup? You know, this is super interesting because Phil was directly asked about this on IGN. I watched his interview with Destin. And they still seem to be heavily indicating that Microsoft just does not have a Pro come in this generation. Now, he actually didn't outright say that in this interview, but if you read like his face, his body language, and along with previous comments, again, maybe Phil just has a great poker face and secretly they are building a Pro right now, but he didn't give that vibe. Like, he really didn't. Like, he was just like, again, he didn't outright say no, but whenever Destin was asking him about, you know, potential Pro console, he was like, eh. He's like, the beginning of this gen was delayed. We're like just now getting into like the good stuff. People are like just now being able to take power, you know, advantage of making current gen only games. Like, he did not give off the vibe of like, and again, dude could just be fantastic poker face, but I didn't get the vibe where he was like, yeah, secretly we got a Pro coming real soon. So I think it's very possible we really are going to live in a world this generation where there's a PS5 Pro, which essentially looks locked. Like, the PS5 Pro looks like it's guaranteed. And Xbox does not have one, which will be interesting because we haven't seen that before. The only generation where there was Pro consoles, there was a bit of a gap between them, but they still both had Pro consoles on the market, right? We had PS4 Pro and we had Xbox One X. We have never seen a gen, because the last gen was the first one even with Pro consoles, where just one of the platform holders launches a Pro and the other one doesn't. So it'll be interesting. I think that Xbox is finally about to get into a very good cadence of game releases, and they've been heavily talking about that at Gamescom with like people like GamesIndustry.biz and others. I wouldn't rule Sony out though, man. They've got some amazing studios, and they're going to have some real big hitters. Like, there's just no doubt about it. You know, whatever Naughty Dog's cooking up next, probably The Last of Us Part 3, there's just no doubt it's going to be a huge game, very highly reviewed. You know, we all know Ghost of Tsushima 2 is going to be a monster. We all know that whatever Ben's cooking up could potentially be awesome. It's a new IP. So I know right now Sony's lineup looks a little questionable. If you look at like total exclusives upcoming, they actually have all sorts of cool stuff, but a lot of that's coming from third party like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and stuff. But don't count Sony out yet, man. A lot of their studios haven't announced games yet. But Xbox, I do feel, in regards to could Xbox have a very intriguing game lineup? Yeah, I think 2024. I think right now, assuming Starfield's good, and we all know Forza's going to be good. Whether it's not going to be a game of the year, but the Forza games are always good. So going from Starfield to Forza to next year Hellblade and you know, this Towerborn game and Avowed, like, they're finally getting in that cadence that we've all been waiting forever for. Glitch channel member, do you think Sony will have a showcase this year? Oh, we actually just talked about that, Glitch. So my answer to the showcase, you might have come in late to the chat. I'll just make it very brief because I literally just talked about this. My answer is I don't expect a showcase. I expect a very good state of play, though, with potentially like a new big single-player first-party game announced. But I'm not personally expecting a full-on showcase, but I'd love to see it. Do you think Xbox Series will be the top-selling console in Circana for the month of September? No. Hate to say it. I would love to see it, to be honest with you, because I think it would be so good for the industry. You know, people want to get into console wars, and they want to, like, you know, talk about, I want this console to do bad, and I want this console to do amazing. And my thing that I always say is I want them all to do amazing. A perfect case scenario to me would be that we get a generation where every single platform sells over 100 million, because that means the industry is thriving. Now, I don't expect that at all. I don't expect every platform holder to 100 million, but I'm rooting for it. Like, that's what I would love. I would love to see PS5 go over 100 million, Xbox Series go over 100 million, Switch 1 and Switch 2 both go over 100 million. Like, because again, that to me is nothing but good news for gamers, because that means our industry is just thriving. So seeing Xbox top the charts with a big new, you know, exclusive, I would love it. It would be amazing to me to see that. I think it was possible, but I think Sony kind of screwed them. And they kind of did it on purpose by putting that Spider-Man bundle in September. You know, it's like, we need to see, but man, I feel like Sony intentionally did that. I really do. I really think it was intentional. I think Sony specifically is launching that PlayStation 5 bundle in September for the specific reason of not giving Microsoft the headline of taking the month. And hopefully they still do it. Hopefully, even with that Spider-Man bundle, that Xbox still has strong enough momentum from Starfield to top the charts. That's what I hope to see. Because I want Xbox to get a win. I do. I want them to get a win. I want them to have some success. So I'm rooting for it. But man, I just still feel like it's going to be PS5. I just still feel like it's going to be PS5, and that Spidey bundle really seals it for them. But I hope I'm wrong. And Anthony Johnson, Silent Hill 2 and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth means Sony automatically wins next year for me if they're both at least good. Yeah, they both look great. Notice they're both coming from third party. That's what I mean. Like, Sony's first party right now, as strong as Sony's first party is, and they've been for many years, just looking right now, it's one of the least impressive lineups they've had in a very long time. But that's strictly because so many studios don't have games announced. It's not like one of those scenarios where Sony has a bunch of announced games that just look bad. It's just like, man, like so many of their studios have 0 games announced. So, but they do have some very good third-party exclusives. Yeah, for sure. Hey, this actually leads us to the first poll. We're deep into this chat, and we haven't done a poll yet. Let's do a poll. Let's do that September poll. That's fun. That's a fun question. Which console is number 1? Come on, where's the freaking pound sign? There we go. In September, NPD/Circana. Which console's number 1, man? PlayStation 5? Xbox Series? Nintendo Switch? All right, which console hits number 1 in September? Now, just, again, to clarify before this poll drops, so you guys have all the information, Xbox has that massive new exclusive coming in with Starfield. PlayStation 5 has just the built-in momentum that it's had. We just keep seeing it be number 1 almost every month, plus the Spider-Man bundle. Switch doesn't have much, so if I'm going to be honest with you, I do expect Switch to be last place this particular month. I do think Xbox Series will have enough momentum to pass Switch this month. I'm not saying that happens even 2 months in a row. I'm saying I think that month Switch probably comes in last, but I could be wrong. All right. This will be so interesting to see what you guys think. I'm so interested in what you guys think. Benji here with a 5 super chat. Benji, do you think Sony is delaying Naughty Dog, Sucker Punch, or Ready at Dawn PS5 reveal for PS5 Pro so they can impress even more visually? No, I just think games are really hard to make, man. You know, we talk about it on this chat endlessly, so I'm not going to go into my tirade that I do all the time, but games just take too long, man. It's really just that. It's really just that, Benji. They just take too long. They just take way too long to make. So, unfortunately, I hate to say it, I don't think it's anything to do with PS5 Pro. I just think that games now all take 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, guys, Mass Effect was announced in 2020. It hasn't left pre-production. It's such a bummer how long games take, man. It's such a danger. Such a danger. But no, I think that's really it, Benji. I totally get wondering that. Totally get it. But I think Sony wants these big games out as fast as possible, if I'm being honest. They really want to accelerate that PS5 adoption rate. We're seeing them come out with big forecasts for their hardware. So, no, I think Sony wants these games out as quick as possible, but games just take too long. That's all it is. And I always want to preface every time I say that, because I know some devs do watch my streams. That's never me insulting the developers. Every time I say games take too long, these studios, these devs are working as hard as they freaking can to get these games out as fast as possible. It's just the realities of modern day AAA game development. They just take too long, you know. Highlander001 with a 5 super chat. Phil was asked about exclusives for Xbox players for Call of Duty and day and date of Call of Duty and Ubisoft. He ignored it. Any thoughts? Yeah, I think Phil wants to be careful about what all he says about the Ubisoft streaming stuff, especially before this deal is done. You know, Microsoft still hasn't actually bought Activision Blizzard. They're on the precipice of it, but it still hasn't happened. So I think Phil is just playing smart. I don't think it's Phil trying to mislead anyone. I don't think it's Phil trying to do anything shady. I just think that Phil is going to be real careful what he says about stuff before this deal is done, because there are certain things that they actually can't do until they buy them, right? They can say some stuff that they want to do or things that might work out or plans vaguely, but until they literally own the company, they can't actually make any decisions. They can make promises, they can make plans, but they can't lock in stone anything until they buy them. So I think that's really it. I think Phil is just like, listen, there's only so much I can say. So I don't blame him for that, really. $100,001 with another 2 super chat. My goodness, the super chats are just ridiculous today. I appreciate it. Heard Microsoft is going to buy Russia after ABK. Oh man, that's funny. That's funny. You know, I just feel bad for the people in Russia, because there's a lot of great people in Russia, to be honest with you. I know that, there's all this drama right now about the war, and clearly what the Russian government is doing is terrible. But I feel for the people in Russia. I feel very bad for the people in Russia. Because Russia, just like anywhere else in the world, is filled with all kinds of great people. Every country in the world, North Korea, it's filled with great people. The problem is we get people in power that aren't. But, yeah, I feel for the people in Russia for sure. Nathan Drake, back to some free questions. Hi, Benji. What is going on with BioWare? It seems like both. I'm probably going to go for about 10 or 15 minutes, guys, and then I got to go because I got work today. So we're an hour and 17. I'll go for right at an hour and a half. So basically 15 minutes. 15 minutes and we're out. Nathan Drake, hi, Benji. What is going on with BioWare? Seems like both Dragon Age and Mass Effect might be in deep trouble with development if they're laying off 50-plus people. It don't look good, Nathan. It don't look good. You know, I was talking about this in my Discord, and whenever I say that, I always preface it's a very small private Discord. I've had a lot of people ask me to make a big public Discord to bring in tons of people, like my community, like some people have. The whole reason that hasn't happened is because it's hard to have any control about what happens in there. Like, even if like I had a couple people I trust moderating it or whatever, I see just so much drama come out of Discords that like that's the whole reason I haven't done one. Because I've had a whole bunch of people be like, Benji, open a Discord for like all of your community. And I'm like, dude, once you have thousands, because if I had a Discord, it would have probably thousands of people in it, if I'm being honest with you, if it was just an open one. Once you have thousands of people with like your name on it, because it would be my Discord, it's like, bruh, all it takes is one psycho saying some crazy stuff and then screenshotting it all over the internet. And you know what I mean? So that's why it hasn't happened. But I was talking in my private Discord about Dreadwolf is like make or break. Like, I'm not exaggerating. I don't know that BioWare exists as a studio if Dreadwolf fails. That's not a hot take. EA has had to have lost hundreds of millions of dollars on the studio over the last decade. They have had, and this pains me to talk about because I love, classic BioWare. Guys, in the last almost 10 years, they've had one commercial success. And do you know what that one commercial success was? A remaster of old games. Outside of that, we are basically talking a decade for a AAA studio to just have nothing in terms of big commercial successes. Like, Dreadwolf has to hit. It has to be successful. So much is riding on Dreadwolf that it's actually crazy. If Dreadwolf comes out, and I'm not expecting this to happen, if Dreadwolf comes out and it's the next Mass Effect Andromeda, and it gets very poor reviews and way underperforms commercially, I don't know that a BioWare exists 2 or 3 years after that. I don't. Even with them making another Mass Effect game, at some point, EA might start to wonder, where do we cut our losses? So this is such an important game for BioWare. It is crazy. It has to be good. It has to. They have to do, I mean, and making games is hard, but what I'm saying, they have to do everything, not just BioWare, EA themselves, everything involved. They have to do everything possible to make sure Dreadwolf hits. It has to hit. So, yeah, they are in deep trouble. You said they might be in deep trouble. They are in deep trouble. There's just no question. Now, it doesn't mean Dreadwolf isn't shaping up to be amazing. You know, maybe behind the scenes, whenever I say they're in trouble financially. Like, financially, that's a studio that's in big trouble. So, yes, they're owned by a publisher, but every studio has to justify their existence, right? I talk about it all the time. Video games are a creative industry, but they're also not a charity. And that doesn't mean I want to see people lose jobs. I never want to see people lose jobs. I'm saying, but at some point, like, money has to be made. Video games, AAA video games cost literally hundreds of millions of dollars, especially when you include marketing. Like, at some point, the money's got to come in. So, I want BioWare to be successful. I hope Dreadwolf's a huge, massive hit for them. But, man, financially, yeah, we're talking a studio that's definitely in peril. There's just no doubt about it. So hopefully Dreadwolf is like an amazing game, huge hit for them, and we're about to go into like the next era of BioWare. That's what my hope is. But yeah, there's a lot riding on this game, man. There's a lot. Jason Benjamin. Hi, Benji. If Assassin's Creed Mirage does well, do you think Ubisoft will make more classic/traditional Assassin's Creed games, or do you think RPG is the focus? Well, apparently Ubisoft has like 15 Assassin's Creed games in development. It's like literally something like that. It's not actually 15, but dude, I think there's a report out there from Insider Gaming or something where there's like 7, 8, 9 Assassin's Creed games right now in development, which is crazy. So, yeah, dude. At this point, there's so much Assassin's Creed games in development, I would just assume they've got everything in development. They got the RPG games, the classic games, the multiplayer games, the games as a service games. Like, if it's really true they got like 7, 8, 9 Assassin's Creed games in development, sure. Yeah, they probably got everything you can think of under the sun in development. Michael Yu, predictions for Starfield's peak CCU on Steam? Yeah, we talked about this. For early access and when game launches, we might not ever see its early access launch number. So in order for us to see Starfield's early access launch number, if I remember right, the way it works is SteamDB has to somehow get the early access version or something like that. I can't remember. There was a game that it won't just be publicly available. Like, you can't just look at the Steam chart and just see where Starfield is unless something has changed in early access. Like, you would have to see that number somehow through SteamDB. Which they did figure out on one game. I think it was Hogwarts. On Hogwarts, it took like a day or two to be able to see its early access number because they were waiting to get like a code or something like that. I can't quite remember. We might not ever see Starfield's peak CCU before the actual launch date. Hopefully we do, but we might not. Which sells more by the end of the year, Spider-Man 2 on PS5 or Starfield on Steam? Oh, wow, what a question. I'll go Spidey. Starfield's going to be an absolute monster, behemoth. But again, I know you're saying Steam specifically, but again, I still think console is going to be so cannibalized for Starfield, and I think even PC will have some cannibalization. If I had to predict, I go Spider-Man. I go Spider-Man on that one. Now, total players, I'm just going to tell you guys right now, it won't be close. Starfield will have more players. I'm telling you that right now. It's not a hot take. It's not a hot take at all. Starfield is absolutely going to have more players than Spider-Man 2. But again, players isn't the same thing as sales. But there is zero doubt in my mind that Starfield has more players. But Spider-Man, I think, probably sells more. Could be wrong, though. Arabic Gamer, Spider-Man 2 got banned in the Middle East due to some, oh, this is why. LGBTQ plus references. The first game, 2 games, because someone mentioned in the last stream that it was banned, and I was surprised. The first 2 games were modified and released. Oh. Do you think Insomniac says PlayStation will modify it and release it there? Spidey is huge in the Middle East. It's a great question, man. I'm just going to be honest, this sort of thing always feels icky to me. You know? I don't like that. And again, You know, you have to talk about the realities of different governments and the realities of what they enforce. But do I like the idea of taking representations out specifically just to appease someone? No, I don't like that. So, but business-wise, it probably does make sense. You know, if we're just talking the numbers, it probably does make sense. The question is what sort of stand do Insomniac and Sony want to make? That's where you have to ask the question. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. Bob, happy belated birthday, Benji. Thank you so much. Keep your head up during the tough times. Stay awesome. Man, I'm trying, dude. I'm trying. I'm trying my best, guys. It's just like... I don't know. I won't go into it. I've gone into it on too many of these chats. Gotta stop feeling sorry for myself. Brad Myers, what's the importance of the Ubisoft deal with ABK games? It kind of feels weird Microsoft going in with Ubisoft, and do you think that one will help passing through the CMA or UK? It'll probably help. Why are they going with Ubisoft? What Phil said essentially is they trust Ubisoft, so that's why they're doing it. He said they have a relationship and they trust them. And the importance is that Ubisoft now has the full cloud rights to every ABK game over the next 15 years. Now, not the native rights, right? But streaming, whenever it comes to cloud streaming, ABK specifically, Ubisoft now owns those rights as long as this deal, you know, as long as Microsoft actually buys them. Johnny G saying, what's good, Benji? What's up, Johnny? And saying, don't forget to leave a like on the live stream. Well, thank you so much. We're wrapping this thing up quick. We got like a few minutes and we're out. Michael Yu, another question. Benji, Armored Core shot up to #1 on global sales charts on Steam. Lifetime sales across all platforms. Where do you think this lands when all is said and done? Total numbers, I have no idea. This is hard to say. It won't do anywhere near Elden Ring numbers. You know, I had some people, you know, even commenting on the reviews, which are great, by the way, for Armored Core being like, wow, you know, disappointing for a From game, even though it's like at 88 or 87, something crazy, just because it didn't hit like Elden Ring or Dark Souls 3 or Sekiro reviews. It's like, guys, this was never going to hit that. Like, this is already way higher reviews than I'm expecting. Dude, Armored Core is like a niche, hardcore mech sim game. And I know like that the combat can be like pretty fast paced and stuff, but for people who have never played an Armored Core game, this is not a casual game at all. Like, this is in some ways more hardcore than Dark Souls. And I'm not saying specifically like just in the minute-to-minute combat, but like it is a deep, mechanics-heavy game. Like, this is not something that's designed for a mass appeal audience. So the fact it already reviewed that high, I believe it's the highest reviewed Armored Core game of all time. I expect this to absolutely be the best-selling Armored Core game of all time. Bandai Namco themselves have even come out and said, we expect this to be the best-selling Armored Core game ever. I agree with that. But do I expect this to hit Dark Souls 3 or Elden Ring numbers? There ain't a chance in hell that happens, in my opinion. So, I mean, I don't know what the previous best-selling Armored Core game is than this because it's been so freaking long. I don't have the historical data for that. I have no idea. To me, this seems like a game that if it could hit 5 million copies would just be incredible. But again, I don't know the exact sales history of this franchise. Maybe there is Armored Core games that have hit 5 million. It doesn't seem like there is. But maybe. But to me, dude, if this could hit 5 million, that would be an incredible result for Armored Core. But maybe I just don't have the right context for how this franchise typically sells. But to me, that seems like a huge success. And I'm not saying day one, I'm saying lifetime. This can sell 5 million lifetime. That would be just incredible to me. All right, did any channel members get missed that didn't get at least one question? This is a fun question as I scroll down from Samuel Tolbert, who's a great friend of mine. Check out his work with Windows Central and other sites. Check out him on Twitter too, saying, yo, Benji, hope you're doing well. With the game slate for the fall/holidays mostly set, what are the biggest questions still on your mind for Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo? Okay, The biggest questions on my mind, it depends on if you mean for like this year or next year or like just moving forward. So you know what? I'll do it for both. So for Xbox, what is my biggest question for them this year, for the remaining of this year? The biggest question to me strictly is, what is Starfield's impact? What can Starfield do for this brand, right? The thing is we haven't seen, and I'm not exaggerating out of this, we haven't seen a game as important for Xbox in a very long time. And you see some people be like, oh, that's hyperbole. You know what Phil Spencer himself said, sitting on the IGN couch yesterday, I think it was? They asked him, like, what was the last time you had a game that was like this important in some of these ways? And he said, not since Gears 1. Guys, when did Gears 1 launch? When did Gears of War 1 launch? 2006. That's from Phil Spencer himself. He said when you factor in it being a new IP, when you factor in it being this like, you know, just brand new world from like an awesome studio, literally he said the last game he can think of that was this important was Gears 1 in 2006. So that shows you, again, not just me saying that, how important it is even within Microsoft how they view this game. So the biggest question to me is literally, what could Starfield's impact be? Will it lift console sales in a significant way? Will it not lift console sales in a significant way? Will it have a huge boost in Game Pass subs? Will it not? How big can this be on Steam? Like, for the rest of this year, there's just no doubt. For me, it's just what can Starfield do for the brand? My biggest question for them moving forward is, can they consistently release high-quality games? Xbox every once in a while does have a great game. The big knock on Xbox for many years is, where is the consistency, right? You see consistency out of PlayStation and you see consistency out of Nintendo. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't have some years better than others or whatever, but both of those platform holders, you just know consistently you're going to get super high quality first-party games out of them. That has not been the case for Xbox. They've had some great games, but they've also had some big misses and also huge gaps between releases. So my biggest question for Xbox moving forward, can they become like PlayStation and Nintendo, where you know that with Xbox, that doesn't mean there's not going to be a bad game every once in a while, but that you're going to get a consistent release pace of high-quality games. That's what they have to prove. For PlayStation, my biggest question for the rest of this year, how high can they go during the holidays? Can Spider-Man 2 really generate crazy sales momentum for the PS5? Can they hit these aggressive sales targets they have? Yeah, it's really like hardware related. Like how, because right now we should be in prime PS5 peak territory, just looking at the way like releases and slates, and with this gen being a little bit more delayed on availability because of the early years, like to me it's very hardware related. Just how big can they get the PS5 hardware sales to be over this coming holiday? My biggest question for Sony moving forward is a two-parter. It's A, can they find any real success with these service games that they're doing? That's obviously a massive question. And then the other big question for me is slate lineup, because it is so sparse right now for first party specifically. We know that there's some great games coming, but how much of gaps are we talking? Are we talking like you can still only get 2 per year out? Because I've said before, it's not enough. It's not enough. Sony should be aiming for exactly the goal that Phil Spencer is aiming for, which is a game per quarter. That to me is just an amazing spot to be as a platform holder. If you can have a big game every quarter, so good. So yeah, biggest question moving forward for them is release slate. For Nintendo, my biggest question this holiday, what can they, like, again, it's actually similar to Sony in that it's hardware related, but it's the opposite. It's not like growth. It's like, do they decline or not? My biggest question for Switch is, like, can they maintain this incredible momentum they've had and really not see significant drops considering how late we are into this console's life cycle? Can they continue to show just tremendous legs and either be barely down or even flat, or who knows, maybe even up or something? It's really that. And then my biggest question for them moving forward is obviously everything around Switch 2. When's it coming out? What are its launch games? Is it backwards compatible? What's the price tag on this thing? We're like so close to it that that's the biggest question moving forward. Yep. All right. We're almost done. We're almost done. I'm just making sure channel members all got something at least. Barely got to the free questions today. My apologies to the free questions, but it was just a full chat. It was a really full chat today, man. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through, checking, make sure channel members got hit. Benji didn't get a channel member question answered, I don't think. Benji got super chats, but not a channel member. Benji's saying, even if Final Fantasy 16 did fine, do you think Square Enix internally was expecting better results? Yes. Are you expecting a change in the strategy with Xbox and Switch to support day one for Final Fantasy 17? Yes to both those. I think that the age of the Final Fantasy exclusives is probably over. And Phil Spencer kind of hinted at that on the couch on IGN yesterday. Now, he was very careful with what he said. You know, we had those comments from the Square Enix CEO a little bit back, how they were going to start working to bring their games to Xbox. He didn't outright confirm, but Phil seemed to hint that both 16 and 7 Remake are coming to Xbox. Now, again, he didn't say that, so I'm not putting words in his mouth. But again, if you read body language, whenever Destin straight up asked him about 7 Remake and 16, he was like, I'll let Square Enix announce the cadence and what they're doing. But the body language to me said yes to both. I think the days of PlayStation getting full exclusivity for Final Fantasy are probably completely over, yes. I think so. I think Square Enix has realized it's not smart. Because it's not smart. I'm just being honest about it. It's not smart. It's not smart for them. Especially, I would say in particular, the Xbox version's less so. It's nice to have the Xbox version available. I keep saying all the time, the main benefit for Square Enix of putting Final Fantasy on Xbox actually has nothing to do with sales because it's not going to sell a ton. The big advantage for Square Enix putting Final Fantasy on Xbox is that Microsoft's going to pay them. They're going to give them a Game Pass bag. And you might say, well, Benji, Sony gives them a bag for exclusivity. You are correct. But that bag for exclusivity thus gets rid of all of the revenue streams. Phil Spencer giving Square Enix a Game Pass bag doesn't remove anything. They still get all of the PlayStation sales that we're going to have anyways. Then, if it's not exclusive, it's obviously going to have to be on PC because we've seen Steam become just this juggernaut. So now you open up all these revenue streams from Steam as well. Plus, Phil's going to throw you a Game Pass bag, whether that's at launch or 6 or 8 months down the line. There's no question Phil's going to be like, here you go. Here's millions of dollars or whatever to put your game on Game Pass. So it's just dumb. It's just from Square Enix perspective. I'm not saying Sony's dumb for trying to lock this down exclusive. I totally get why Sony would want to do this. I'm saying if you are Square Enix, it is dumb. You are making a bad decision. You need to stop making bad decisions. So just don't do it. You are cutting off revenue streams, and AAA games are too expensive. Like, they're way too much money, dude. So yeah, I think Square Enix may have finally learned the lesson. I think they're probably done with that. Outside of things that are already signed. I mean, there's deals that are signed. So, you know. Rebirth, it looks like that's exclusive. I don't think that's going to come to other consoles until whatever the exclusive window is up on. But, like, yeah, I think anything without a contract, I don't think they're doing the exclusive thing anymore. And they heavily hinted at that. Bomangi, should Sean O'Malley's nickname be American Sniper? That cracking right hand. That was a beautiful right. A beautiful counter right hand, straight down the pipe. And it was beautiful how he got Aljo to overextend. You know, some people are like wanting to take away from Sean O'Malley's punch there because they're trying to be like, oh, Aljo was sloppy and stuff. Do you know why Aljo was sloppy there? The whole reason why he overextended and left himself open for that, it was because of O'Malley's movement. It was because of O'Malley's movement. People miss that. Sugar Sean O'Malley's footwork is so good. And he was able to stay on that outside, and Aljo was having so much issues closing the distance. Right? Whenever you're a grappler like that, there's always going to be a danger whenever you come in on the striker, especially if you're shooting for a shot or a punch. Like a lot of times, you know, a grappler will throw the punch or whatever to create an entry to then get in on the legs or the hips or whatever to induce the grappling exchange. But that can be started with actually a punch. But really the punch isn't intended necessarily to land. It's to cross that distance, right? I'm coming in on you. I'm throwing the shot. You're moving away from the shot, and now I'm closer to you. I can get a hold of you. And that's exactly what happened in the scenario, is that Aljo was having so much issue closing that distance. O'Malley was able to, through footwork, especially lateral movement, that side-to-side lateral footwork was just amazing. And he got Aljo to become desperate. Aljo was becoming desperate to close that distance. He threw a sloppy punch trying to overextend and get closer to Sean. Sean saw that coming and then beautifully moving away, counter right, bam, right down the... I mean, it was gorgeous. It was gorgeous, man. I'm not even the biggest Sugar Sean O'Malley fan in the world or whatever, but oh my God, that was just beautiful. You know, some people that don't understand combat sports, you know, they just see the blood or they just see the violence and they don't see that. But when you know what you're looking at, you're just like, brilliance. You saw brilliance. That was brilliant. Incredible from Sugar Sean. Incredible, man. Absolutely incredible. All right. We're about out. We're about out. I'm just making sure all the channel members got hit at least somewhat. And then we got to go. Highlander Pete Hines says he's 160 hours in and not even close to being finished. Yeah, game's massive. Absolutely freaking massive. He's talking about Starfield. All right, guys. I think that's it. I think every channel member got at least one thing hit. I think we got all super chats, all the good stuff, man. If I did miss something, I apologize. Now, I know I didn't hit every single channel member question because there's a lot in here, but I think everyone got at least one. So we're going to call it there. Let's read the results of this poll, and then let's bounce. So I asked you guys, which console is going to be #1 in September, NPD/Circana? The vast bulk of you felt similar to how I'm feeling, that 65% say PS5, and I agree. I think that was definitely up in the air before Sony stuck that Spidey bundle. But I just think that Spidey bundle, that's literally the purpose of it, why it's there and not alongside the launch of Spider-Man, right? This is releasing over a month before Spider-Man launches. We've seen like a week or two, you know, some hardware. This is like more than a month. To me, this is 100% intentional. It's Sony not trying to give Microsoft the headline. So 65% of you feel the same as me. PS5 still takes that #1. 30% of you say Xbox Series, which I admire. I hope it happens, dude. I'm rooting for it to happen. I'm actively hoping that happens, but we'll see. 30% of you say Xbox Series, and then 6% of you say Nintendo Switch. So that to me would be the surprise. I do actually think that this is the very rare month that Switch is in third place. I don't think that continues. I don't think Switch is going to be in third, you know, November and December. But I think this will be the rare month where Switch is actually last. But we'll see. All right, guys. Thank you for what, in my opinion, was a great stream. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Thank you to everyone that is a channel member. You're all amazing. Thank you for all of the super chats. It's incredibly amazing. I apologize to all of the free questions. I barely hit you today. I tried to get some, but it was just a very full chat today from channel members and super chats. So not a lot could get highlighted in regards to that. So my apologies. I'll try to get to more of the free ones next week. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Like the video if you haven't. Helps the YouTube algorithm. And follow me on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it if you don't already. All right, guys, I'm out. As always, stay safe. Play some games. And I will see you all either next week here on YouTube or very, very soon on Twitter/X. Have a great day, everyone. Much love. You guys are the best. And bye. Bye-bye, bye-bye, bye. Bye, bye, bye.